You
22.
wrote it down.
Andrew and Ashley
I
are
have-
keeping me in check here. So I'm told this is module 22. Before we went through modules 18 to 21, which is buyer packet and presentation. And now we are down to the sales process. For those of you watching, at this point, one of the most helpful things, I'm actually going to embed it in our training. One of the most helpful things to do right now is just to watch a training on how to get somebody to actually commit to signing the buyer's agency. And so we're going to put a link to that. So if you're watching this, just go to your drive and type in training video links, and this sheet will come up that I'm looking at right now. And you can watch any of those, but the one I really want you to watch right now, if you're watching this, is going to be embedded right here. And go ahead and watch that, and it'll be super helpful. We just watched it. All right, the sales process, a deep dive to connect the dots. Do you guys have that page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So we're going to back up and take more of like a 30,000 foot view of everything we've talked about from the beginning of this to now. And so you guys can just stop me if you have any questions about kind of the order. But first thing is we have in our sales process, we have inbound leads. And so there was a point where I wrote on the dry erase board, you have inbound leads over here, and it goes all the way to settlement. And so there's this funnel on inbound leads, and there's two activities that can generate leads that come in. There's money and there's time. Money is what I spend to generate business, which calls us. Time is what you spend in the mornings prospecting and just calling a lot of people to figure out if they know about anybody buying and selling. Both of them generate callbacks or inbound calls that require follow-up to take through the sales process. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When an inbound lead comes in, whether they're calling you back from a prospecting activity or whether they're inquiring on Zillow or Realtor.com or a sign call, number two on there is you have to respond in 5 minutes. All right. So that's in our lead management policy, which we are going to go over in more detail. You guys should have gotten a copy of that with the How We Work documents when you originally signed on.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead management policy is fairly complicated, but we're going to learn it. And that's the document that we actually report on every Friday. We review everybody's leads, and we score them on how they're doing in responding. Now, the reason we want to respond in 5 minutes and we do that scoring isn't as much what we want from you. It's equally as much as what we want for you, because if we're going to read it, but there's an MIT lead response study that was done by that college. You guys are familiar with MIT.
Mm-hmm.
And they studied internet leads in the sales world, and in particular real estate internet leads. And they looked at something like 10,000 internet leads. You can Google MIT lead response study, and you'll see a white paper on it, an entire description of the results of the study. It was fascinating, and one of the most clear things that that they published was that the attention span of a consumer on a real estate website is very short. And the difference between responding within 5 minutes and responding within 10 minutes was like 4 times the conversion. The difference between responding in 5 minutes and responding in an hour was many tens of times the conversion. So it was almost not worth it to respond after a day. And the difference between an hour and 5 minutes was incredible. And you'll see it on a bar graph. I'll show it to you. So, if you're going to spend all this time following up with leads, your time is just way more efficient if you're able to do it within that 5 minute period. So that's just really important. Diversify your communication was also part of the results of this study, and we've seen this in practice. So we want to. The lead comes in, and different people prefer to communicate with different methods. And some people will respond to a phone call, their generation, but they won't. They get a text. My dad used to be this way, not so much anymore. But if I texted him, he would actually get mad. He'd be like, "Why don't you just pick up the phone and call?" And there's definitely people that will inquire about a house that have no interest in somebody texting them. They want to hear a voice. There's other people who they see a number they don't recognize on their phone. This is my wife. They're not picking it up. But if you text them, they'll text you right back, right? And likewise, some people live in their email at work. And so they actually don't have reception in their work, or they're not looking at their phone, but you send them an email and they'll respond really quickly. So when a lead comes in, you'll want to call, text, and email right away. Now, our system is set up so that a text is sent for you most of the time, unless you ask me to turn that off. So really, you just want to make sure you're calling right away. And then the system will text and the system will email. You'll want to do some custom work on top of what the system does, but we do some of that for you. You'll want to follow up 8 calls, 6 texts, and emails in the first 10 days. There's a daily report produced on your leads that tracks that. Your goal is just to get to 100% compliance on that report. And that's also just, that's a numbers thing. So if you don't, so there's a lot of agents connecting with inbound leads. Most agents will only call once, maybe twice. Same MIT studies, rated how often salespeople follow up. The difference between 8 calls in 10 days and 9 calls in 10 days was only a 1% increase in conversion. But the difference between 7 and 8 calls was like 7 or 8%. The difference between 6 and 7 calls was like 10 or 12%. The difference between 5 and 6 calls was like 12, 15%. The difference between 1 and 2 calls was like 20%. And so by the time you get to 8 to 9 calls, the study showed that it's probably not worth your time to follow up again, because the increase in conversion, the increase in probability of a conversion or a connection with that prospect was negligible after 8. But it wasn't negligible after 6. And so our lead conversion policy just mimics the results of that study and a couple other sources that all are saying basically the same thing. So if you're ever wondering, well, how do I have to call these and text these people so much? It's just a reflection of data on some studies that were done. That's why we have it. Meaningful conversations. So question-based selling. So we've talked about this. The inbound lead comes in, and you follow up quick, call, text, and email. You actually get a connection with somebody, and you're going to open up with enthusiasm. So, hey, Jason, this is Dave. I saw you inquired on 123 Main Street. What can I tell you about that property, and when is a good time for you to preview the home, right? And so every statement in the beginning of a call needs to end with a question. Sales is mostly listening, and the only way to listen is to allow them to speak. And the only way to get them to speak is to ask questions. So part of your script worksheet that should, be comfortable for you is, it doesn't need to be a lot. You don't need to overthink it, but here are 3 or 4 questions that I can ask every prospect in every situation. And those 3 or 4, just roll off your tongue every time you speak to somebody. It's like clockwork. So some great ones are, what can I tell you about that property? So you need them to be open-ended. So I see you inquire about 123 Main Street. What can I tell you about that property? And he says, I was looking, interested in seeing if the basement was finished or whatever. Great. Well, I pull that information up. What brings you to that neighborhood today? Is there a reason you're interested in that geographic area? He might say, well, we kind of live nearby. Oh, great. What area do you live in? Like, everything's just a question, because you're learning about every time they give you a response, it's, you're just, and we call that digging deep. So when somebody, picture yourself like, my son is 3, and when I say something, he often says, why? And I'm like, because mom said. Why? Well, because she thinks it's important and she cares about you. Why? Well, because, and he's really good at sales, because he's like totally, he stays on top of me with that question. And that's really what the beginning of a conversation is. Now, you need to be a little bit more creative than the word why. But that's what you're doing. And the more you can do that with 3 or 4 go-to questions, the more you're going to find that your prospect is talking to you. And those are the points where you have a pen You're able to take some notes. And the best salespeople create mastery around listening. So when they hear something where they can connect with this person, that's really what we're looking for, is to make a connection, a real, authentic connection. Oh, you went to Penn State. What year did you graduate? I went to Penn State. I graduated in 2002. Where'd you live? Now we're not talking about houses anymore. I lived in Nicholas Terrace. I lived in Nicholas Terrace for like a year. That's crazy. What'd you study at Penn State? So we're having this conversation around our stuff. And at some point I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, well, Jason, you didn't call about Penn State. So you called about this house. And, I've now earned Jason's trust because we've found what's called common ground. Mm-hmm. So number 5, meaningful conversations starts about question-based selling and then listening and then finding common ground and making a connection. And the word meaningful conversation is so important because data and studies have shown that if you, I'm going to use I don't love this analogy, but it's the only one I can think of right now. If you go car shopping and you walk onto a car lot and you ask some information about a car, and that salesperson answers your questions. Yeah, it's $17,000. It's a 2015. They're a little flexible on price. You're gonna move on. You didn't spend very much time. You didn't loan that person very much of your time. If the next salesperson on the next lot that you talk to, so you say, how much does it cost? He says, $17,900. What brings you out to the Subaru lot today? Are you most interested in Subarus or something else? Well, we're most interested in, oh, great. What makes you most interested in that type of car? Is it safety or is it, price? Or, oh, we're price. We're shopping for price. We just, my husband just got laid off. Oh, where did you work? I'm sorry to hear that. In that conversation, I don't even care what it's about. If that salesperson can develop a 10 to 15 minute conversation about anything with that person, here's the deal. When that person leaves that lot, they've loaned 15 minutes of their life to that other person. If they get approached by another salesperson, they're much more likely to not want to go through another 15 or 20 minute conversation again. Mm-hmm. They've already had it. They already have a little bit of common ground with someone else. And so if they're approached, their defenses are firmer and they're just more likely to go back to the person that they've had a conversation with. Not because of anything else other than they're selfish. We're selfish and we don't want to give that much of our time to anyone again. And so if you can find common ground, it does build trust, but from a practical sense, it's just a matter of drawing out a little bit of a longer conversation. And, it sounds a little cold, I guess, but there's some facts about that matter. And mm-hmm. So when you hear us say, dig deep, that means be like my son Henry and ask why, so you can have longer conversations and find common ground. But you're also going to hear us say, did you have a meaningful conversation? Which not only means did I find common ground and build trust, but was it longer than a 2-minute conversation, which will cultivate loyalty. Mm-hmm. Longer than 2-minute conversations cultivate loyalty. Mm-hmm. It's just a fact.
Not to get off topic,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but that same thing just happened to me this past weekend. I changed service providers, and the first guy I went in to talk to, he opened up, he gave me some really great information, and my husband wasn't ready to sign that day because he was doing some other things. So we waited 2 days to go back to him specifically instead of going somewhere right down the road, somewhere new to talk to somebody. So I was loyal to him. And when I went back into that second meeting, somebody else approached me and I said, oh, I'm already working with somebody. Yeah. I'm looking for that guy over there. Yeah. So,
totally happens. Mm-hmm. And so, it's just sales 101, and people don't want to they don't want to go through the newness of a relationship again. New relationships are hard for humans, and we find comfort in somebody that we've already talked to for a few minutes. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't even have to be a deep conversation. As long as it's long and has a little bit of substance, you'll find that it increases the probability of you earning their trust. Yeah. All right, good. So number 6, learn their home preferences and set them up on a saved search in the CRM. So that happens, that's now we're talking about So the first 60 seconds is question-based stuff and listening and common ground and rapport. The next 60 seconds is digging deep. It's asking questions off of questions to get to a meaningful conversation and more common ground. Once you do that, it's time to go to work. So now we're into structure of a call, LP Mama, buyer info sheet stuff, right? We've got past that hurdle, and there's some engagement there. So Jason, I know you didn't call about Penn State. You know what? Just let me learn about your home search process. Let's just start with like, what's your favorite location? Like, if you could paint a perfect picture of your home, where would that be? And how many bedrooms is perfect for you and your family? And how about how many baths? And now you're jotting some information down about their home search, and you get past location. And so what's your perfect, picture about price? Like, what monthly payment are you comfortable with? And have you talked with the lender? Let me just clarify, Jace, so I don't step on anybody's toes. Are you working with another agent? LP Mama. And as you're doing that, you're taking notes, and you're going to make sure that you set them up on a saved search in FirePoint, right? And part of that is, even if you didn't get their information in total, you're going to set them up on a saved search anyway, because they're going to see your face every night along with some properties, which will help rebrand yourself. So when you do a follow-up, they're like, oh, I remember you. I talk to you before I see you every night on my email. But if they're actually giving you legitimate information, you're going to tighten that search up so they're actually getting relevant properties, and it's going to give you a reason to follow. Hey, did you see that one I sent you last night on Main Street? And so you're going to make sure to save that search. Number 7, hunting versus farming. So this is just a concept that I'm going to put. So we got the first 60 inbound leads, 5 minutes, call, text, email, and then the first 60 seconds, question-based selling, build rapport, dig deep, develop meaningful conversation, learn their home search preferences, and LP Mama. And then against the backdrop of all of that, this says the more it goes against your self-interest, the better. So the example that I like to give is I inquire on a for sale by owner as a listing agent, right? And and I'm talking to a for sale by owner who's trying to sell their home themselves. And I've just started to meet with them. I built a touch of common ground, and I asked them a few questions. And everything in them tells them that my motivation is to convince them why they should use me. I haven't earned the right to do that 120 seconds into a conversation. It's not time to do that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to say to that for sale by owner, actually, let me give you a better analogy. Somebody has inquired on Zillow on a house that is for sale by owner. So for sale by owners sometimes post their information on Zillow, and it's not on the multi-list. And so this is the example I wanted to use actually. Is I get a call, and the person says, I'm interested in this property on Zillow at 123 Main Street, and I pull it up, and they say, I noticed it was a for sale by owner, so I don't really need to talk to you. This call actually happened. So sorry I inquired. I noticed it was a for sale by owner. I'm trying to get a hold of the owner. I don't need a real estate agent. Very curt, very firm, right? And so I asked them a couple questions, and you could tell they wanted to get off the phone with me, which you're going to get a lot of that. I have not earned the right to say to this person, have you ever thought about using a buyer's agent and how much that could benefit you? Because her missile command is up, like her defenses are up. And she called, she inquired, but then she realized it was a for sale by owner, and this realtor is hounding her. And she's like, I don't want to be stuck with you. I want to talk to the owner. So I said to her, Jane, I know you don't want to work with a realtor. I totally understand that. I have a piece of technology called the call directory here that automatically shows me the cell phone information of homeowners. Have you had trouble getting a hold of that person? Yeah, I can't find her information. Well, I'll tell you what, if you can hold on a second, let me get that information for you. And I'm going to give you the owner's cell phone number. And I'm also, Jane, going to send you an example seller property disclosure, because in Pennsylvania, it's the law for a seller to disclose material defects in their home to you. And a lot of sellers that are selling privately Don't. Sorry if you're watching. There's a bug in here. It's gonna kill us. She'll say there. So I'll say, and a lot of sellers don't know they're required to reveal defects in the home to a buyer. And so if you look at that home and they don't have one filled out, that's a problem for you. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to email you a blank copy of one, and that way, if you call her and they don't have one filled out, you kind of seem like an expert, and you can let them know that it's the law that they need to fill one of those out. The other thing I'm going to do for you is that property is in a neighborhood that I know very well. It's called Nottingham, and I've actually sold 3 or 4 properties there. My team has in the last year. I'm going to send you the sold prices of those properties. That's, of course, what we call a comparable, and it'll help guide you as to whether this for sale by owner is priced too high or not, and that'll help you decide, where you want to make your offer. I'm also going to send you a blank agreement of sale. That's what we use to make an offer, and so you'll have that, and that way, since you're not using a realtor, you can go to your attorney, pay them, save the realtor fee, and you'll already have that to fill out and make your offer. Do you have any questions about how to construct a contingency or like an inspection or anything in your offer? At this point, Jane is totally disarmed. She's like, you're going to give me their number. You're going to send me an agreement of sale to fill out to make the offer. You're going to, send me comparables. You're going to, send me a seller's disclosure. And so I haven't earned the right to sell Jane. What I've earned the right to do is serve Jane, right? And so this concept is just overlaid around the backdrop of everything we talked about on prospecting. And when you start to prospect for people, you want to start by serving them. And the reason you want to serve them is because of a concept that we've talked about all along, and it's like in the sidelines of everything that we discuss about structure and about question-based selling. It's what are your gold bricks, right? And we talked about this before. What item of value do you have that is going to bring that person back to you? That when you call and follow up in 3 days, they're going to be happy to talk to you because you have something that they want. All too often I hear our salespeople and other salespeople leave voicemails on a prospect's voicemail, and it goes something like this. Hey, this is so-and-so from the Dave Hook team. I just saw you were looking around on our website for a home, and I just wanted to touch in and see if you had any questions about homes on our website and if I could help you in any way. If I can, give me a call back at 385-7478. If you got that call from somebody that you didn't know who was selling widgets or vacuum cleaners or anything else, there's not a chance that you're going to call them back. You're going to delete it, right? You don't know this person. There was nothing of value in that call. And God love them for their hard work, but they're wasting their breath. Like if they do that for an hour, there's no item of value in there that's gonna increase probability of a callback. So when you're talking to somebody, even if their defenses are up like Jane's was, you want to, we call it hunting or you're prospecting, you haven't earned the right to do anything, you want to hunt with, it's the same way if you go fishing, you want to have really good bait, right? Something attractive. You don't fish with a hook, you fish with something good, right? And it's maybe not the best analogy, but that's what this is. And when you're prospecting to somebody, you want to have something that they want. Otherwise, it's a wasted call. So always be thinking. The FSBO is the best example because that was the hardest one, right? The calls that you're getting, they want property information, right? They what they want. Like they want properties, and so there's all sorts of things you can say that you're dropping gold bricks out there that you can give them. For Jane, she didn't want anything from me. In fact, she wanted me off the phone so she could not talk to a realtor. But what was I able to do with Jane? I was able to construct items of value that she didn't even know she needed. And by the time I got done talking with her, she was asking me, well, what is this seller's disclosure thing? Or how do I find those properties? Don't worry, Jane. And then she finally said, what's in this for you? And I said, Jane, nothing's in it for me at all. I just want to be a reputable person in the community, and I'm here. My kids live here. I'm here to build a business and build a good reputation. And the way I look at it, Jane, is if I can help you on this property and it works out for you, you'll tell lots of people how good of a person I was to help you, and I didn't even get paid for it. But you know what, Jane? If it doesn't work out and you go looking for other properties, I bet if you need to call a realtor, I might be top one or two, at least I hope, on your list. How's that sound? Yeah, I guess you would be at this point, Dave. I appreciate that. So just keep that in mind as the backdrop to, as we're talking about question-based selling, common ground, getting the appointment, building rapport, LP Mama. Overlaid on all that is when we're hunting, we're serving. We're not selling, right? When we're prospecting, we're serving. We're not selling. We're listening and we're providing value. And the only way we know what kind of value is by listening. And we're listening, we're writing stuff down. How can I serve them? What items of value can I pull out of my tool belt and drop in these next couple sentences so that, and I'm not saying you need this. I'm saying I can give it to you. Whether I'm not saying you need me or you need this or I'm the best. I'm just saying this is something I can give you. I think it might make sense for you to take a look at it. How's that sound? Right? So that's the goal, is to color every conversation with items of value, gold bricks. A little bit more on that, and then we're going to stop this recording. At some point in the conversation, you can't make a compelling offer to somebody to do an appointment if you haven't laid out value. It's just not helpful. It's just awkward. But if you've laid out value, then you can say, trial close, how's that sound? Well, I guess that sounds good. Or does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I got a acknowledgement there. Okay, great. Well, I think it might additionally make sense for you to just pop in the office and I can go over some of this stuff with you and I'll give you copies of it. Now I got an appointment. How's that sound? Is 5:30 good for you later today? And now I can really secure my relationship with her because I'm going to meet her face to face, right? And back to that meaningful conversation. I've got a super meaningful one. She came to my office. I met her face to face. I got to shake her hand. I showed her a ton of value. I probably wrote her a handwritten note. And now, if she's going to use a realtor, she's probably going to use me. So you can't make a compelling offer until you've dropped value. Farming, so now we've hunted, we've prospected, and that's serving value, not selling. When you start farming, that's when they've engaged with you because they like you. So signed buyer's agency, or I do want to. You're the only agent that gave me all that information, so I do want to work with you. Now is when we're farming, and it's time to provide value, but it's also time to set boundaries in the relationship. And so now they're our clients. So let's sit down and talk about the next phase of the process. So it's like you're turning a switch. When new business development, you're prospecting, and it's question-based selling, rapport, structure of a call, throwing value in there, making compelling offers, getting appointment. Once an engagement happens, you're switching, and now you're a buyer's agent, and you're farming, you're watering it, you're serving it every day, you're touching in and saying, now you know this person, and so now hey, found a property for you, let's go look at it. There's nothing in this neighborhood. Let me work for you and find some off-market properties. You're writing offers, and now you're doing what I would consider, what a lot of people consider the fun part of real estate. But you can see there's two different strategies involved in those things. The first is you're earning their trust. The second is you have their trust and you're doing your job, right? And in that part, you talk about boundaries. You'll constantly come back to, here's my office hours. Here's when I receive phone calls, because you do want to protect your family time. All right, that's the first 7 concept as we talk about, progressing through the sales process. Any questions on those first 7? Okay. And this one.